Before this video begins, I would just like to thank my Asbantium level patron, Fallon Cortez. Thank you for supporting the channel. Happy Doctor Who Day. Or close enough when this goes out. Because what, you expect me to upload on a Sunday? Are you crazy? Sundays are reserved for blankly staring at a screen watching cars drive around for 2 hours without even doing anything. But this weekend marked Doctor Who's 62nd anniversary since its first ever episode, An Unearthly Child, hit TV screens across the UK. We all know the story of how it became the little show that could, an unexpected runaway success spawning a rich history and leaving a lasting legacy. But recently, I had a conversation that made me see Anniversaries in a very different light. Despite them being big events for both the show and the fanbase, Doctor Who Anniversaries are actually kind of cursed. And I don't mean these random ones like this year where nothing really happens outside of, a couple announcements and releases because of it being Doctor Who Day. No, I mean the landmark ones. The anniversaries that gave us the end of the Time War, the return of David Tennant, 5 Doctors sharing an episode. Every 10 years, Doctor Who tries to do something big to celebrate its history and its legacy. But in the wake of the 60th anniversary, I can't help but feel as though these landmark anniversaries actually hurt the show more than they help. It's a huge short-term marketing success, sure, but it creates a come down that has lasting effects at the show's own detriment. It sounds ridiculous, right? Suggesting things like Day of the Doctor are actually bad for Doctor Who? But honestly, it does make sense when you think about it. So, without further ado, behold the Doctor Who Anniversary Curse. Okay, so, thesis. Landmark anniversary years hurt Doctor Who because it's a big swelling in publicity and celebration that cannot be matched with an immediate continuation. Evidence. The 50th anniversary. This was Doctor Who's biggest ever anniversary, with a concerted effort to celebrate the show in a suitably big format. Series 7B featured a lot of callbacks and references to the past. There were lots of expanded media releases and re-releases to mark the anniversary. There were documentaries, a docudrama, minisodes, a comedic special, and of course, Day of the Doctor, a climactic special uniting the immensely popular 10th and 11th Doctors to wrap up New Who's Time War storyline, featuring all sorts of cameos. It was probably the best year ever to be a Doctor Who fan, because it was just absolutely everywhere and there was so much to enjoy and celebrate. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the 50th itself, but it's what came next that's the problem. Because the 50th anniversary also saw the end of the 11th Doctor era, with 2014 seeing Series 8 and the 12th Doctor taken over. But a lot of people didn't watch Series 8. People didn't like the 12th Doctor, and a big part of that was because of the 50th anniversary preceding it. Have you ever been to a really, really good party that you don't want to end? And the morning after you just feel kind of empty and nothing feels the same? Actually, we're Doctor Who fans. We don't go to parties. But you know what I mean. It's hard to maintain the feeling of excitement that comes with a big anniversary special. Everything gets dialed up to 11 in every aspect, no pun intended. So when you come back to a regular series and a new Doctor, people are less interested because it doesn't feel the same. Series 8 and 9 suffered heavily coming off the back of the 50th anniversary and its blockbuster celebrations. When things just snap back to reality of just a Doctor and companion going on adventures, people feel less enthusiastic or interested because how can you match that hype, that excitement, and that unashamed nostalgia train? The 50th anniversary was very playful and celebratory to the extent that even its huge retcon of saving Gallifrey feels cathartic and exciting rather than annoying. But then mere months later, Series 8 has a nearly opposite tone, with the pricklier and more serious 12th Doctor grappling with his morality. It's such a brutal hangover from that celebratory tone, and the attempt to change the show for the 12th Doctor era suffers a lot because it's right after a big anniversary year like that. And it's notable just how much or how quickly the show plummeted after this anniversary, both in terms of ratings and mainstream popularity. It took the landmark casting of the first ever female Doctor to recapture that kind of interest, but even that interest died off in due course. Of course, there are a multitude of other factors in play for Series 8 losing popularity, with the storytelling often criticised, and a lot of people hate the Doctor, or Clara, or both, but they're objectively wrong and should be ashamed of themselves.
You should feel bad.
But what makes me so confident that Anniversaries can be detrimental to the show is the more recent history of the 60th anniversary. This saw a trilogy of specials reuniting David Tennant and Catherine Tate after their success as Doctor and Companion in 2008's Series 4. These three specials are widely considered a return to form for the show, and saw a huge buzz in the mainstream not seen for years. And yet, it also hurt the show, because just a month later, The Church on Ruby Road came out to a mixed reception, with Season 1 following with equally divisive reactions by the end. This instance isn't detrimental for the same reasons the 50th had on Series 8. The 60th was a huge year for Doctor Who, but it wasn't as big as the 50th. However, the core failing was the immediate launch into another Doctor's era. There was no time to dwell on these specials and let them marinate, especially not compared to the 50th. Even that gave you at least half a year. In an ideal world, you would have the 14th Doctor trilogy, ride the hype wave, and then when the time is right and people are ready to look forward again, you start Series 14, or Season 1. And that branding is another part of how this anniversary had a negative effect on Doctor Who, because it was a complete mess. The 60th was supposed to be a finale of sorts to New Who, transitioning into a new Disney co-produced era with a fresh season numbering system, but there didn't feel like a clean break there, creating a very messy feeling that stopped the show settling, and the highs of the 60th could never be matched by a short 8-episode season introducing a new Doctor. So the hangover felt so much worse. A lot of people have a feeling that the 60th trilogy just feels more Doctor Who than the two seasons that followed, and I think a big part of that is simply that there wasn't enough time between them, so people couldn't help but compare them, despite the 15th Doctor era being a vastly different genre to the 14th Doctors. And thus, the anniversary once again unintentionally damaged the show. And I don't think that this phenomenon is exclusive to the modern iteration of the show either. The 40th anniversary was a bit of a mess in retrospect. Scream of the Shulker was billed as a big official continuation of Doctor Who, only to be almost immediately eclipsed by the TV show being announced as returning, to the extent a lot of people don't even know Shulker exists, which makes it even weirder that its would-be official 9th Doctor was referenced in Rogue without any explanation. And of course, the 30th anniversary was just awful, with Dimensions in Time absolutely stinking things up and only deepening the show's struggles to find relevance and permanence in the 90s, cementing the Wilderness years as seemingly hopeless because nothing else was getting off the ground. And the 20th anniversary served as an ugly reminder of that. It wasn't even the kind of anniversary we'd get later on, with the publicity swell and the increase of interest. Dimensions in Time was just terrible and hurt the show in a whole different way, causing severe reputational harm and damage. I mean, you just can't really recover from something like that without hoping people forgot about it, which they luckily did just many years later. But I will admit that not every anniversary is cursed. Doctor Who's 10th anniversary saw the very popular and celebrated Season 10, kick-started with the first multi-Doctor story marking the landmark occasion. Season 10 is the peak of the 3rd Doctor's era, especially since it saw him regain his ability to use his TARDIS, returning the show to its time and space travelling roots. It might be because it was the first such anniversary year, but there's absolutely no sign of the hangover that would plague later occasions. However, the 20th anniversary is still absolutely the kind of problematic situation we're talking about. After the big, ambitious and celebratory 5 Doctors, Season 21 kind of stumbled out the blocks with the atrociously received Warriors of the Deep, with its bad lighting, unthreatening Mercury, and simply brilliant acting.
Face it, Tegan! He's drowned!
Now don't get me wrong, Resurrection of the Daleks is solid, and Case of Androzani is obviously very beloved and brilliant, but Season 21 absolutely feels like a come down from the anniversary, with so many production issues and a tonal shift causing fatigue. You go from a nice, fun and cozy special to a season of moral and ethical horrors exploring how hostile the universe is, how fallible the Doctor is, and the consequences of actions like his relationship with Tegan shattering in Resurrection of the Daleks. It's very much the same kind of tonal shift that happened with the 50th and Series 8, the dissonance of a celebration getting in the way of a long-term atmospheric tone and evolution of the show. The looking back, effects of Anniversaries can stop the show from being able to effectively move forward, because there's no greater drug than nostalgia. And of course, season 21 is just terrible because it ends with the twin dilemma, although I don't think you can blame any Anniversary shenanigans for that. It's just terrible. So, why does this effect keep hurting Doctor Who? And is it unique to the franchise? I would honestly be inclined to say yes, although not entirely. There are plenty of big franchises out there that celebrate their history, but it's rarely in the same fashion that Doctor Who does. Sure, Skyfall was somewhat of a 50th anniversary celebration of James Bond, its release coinciding with a concerted effort to mark the occasion, with box set releases and events, and the movie is very self-referential. But it's a movie, and therefore doesn't have the same immediate continuation that Doctor Who deals with. Although, actually come to think of it, Spectre was a terrible follow-up to the very popular and successful Skyfall, so, you know, I guess you could make a case there. I also suppose that the MCU might be more applicable, given how Infinity War and Endgame were ostensibly a 10-year anniversary event bringing together all the major threads of the previous decade of sloppy movies in one big crossover that had the unintended side effect of damaging the phase that followed, because the audience then had fatigue and realised that they're all slop, and the return to more normal, lower stakes storytelling after such an ambitious and climactic narrative made them just give up. Anniversary celebrations tend to be best in isolation, having lots of breathing room rather than immediately launching into more regular content. When part of an ongoing continuous release of new media, they set an event baseline that cannot be sustained or maintained. I mean, just look at something like Power Rangers, which had specials within the middle of seasons like Forever Red, Once a Ranger and Legendary Battle, which all overshadowed their respective seasons because they were the equivalent of throwing in Day of the Doctor into the middle of Series 7 and then the next episode being like Cold War. Anniversary celebrations simply set too high of a bar and put too much of a strain on both production teams and audiences. That's why they sometimes cause more issues than they truly elevate the show. Calling this phenomena a curse suggests something malicious or sinister, but no Doctor Who anniversary has ever outright set out to sabotage the show. Instead, they just want to celebrate and honour such a long and storied franchise. But despite being well-meaning, the come down and hangover of these specials and celebrations usually cause much more harm than good, and it's especially true in recent years, with the 50th anniversary overshadowing Series 8 and the tonal shift driving fans away, and the 60th anniversary attempting to both end an era before a new one would begin just a month later, causing a very messy and bumpy brand identity that would very much damage the rest of the era and struggle to define the new Doctor during a crucial period for the show. I can't emphasise just how much unintentional damage the 60th anniversary did for Doctor Who. The show went from such a high celebratory trilogy to episodes like Space Babies, and season 1 culminated in the derided Empire of Death, throwing away a lot of the goodwill those anniversary specials had worked so hard to build up. These big anniversary years dial up the hype, budget and nostalgia to such a level that the show cannot just immediately return to its literal regularly scheduled programming, because there's not enough time to rebuild and restore the usual stakes. The anniversaries are therefore a poisoned chalice of sorts. They're not bad, and they're almost always fantastic celebrations of the show, except Dimensions in Time, but they end up being a short-term event with long-term problems. We're just 2 years removed from the 60th anniversary, but it feels like it was a million years ago because of all the chaos and uncertainty that followed, despite those specials being intended as a way to secure the show's future. Anniversaries are just too big sometimes. It's why I'm actually kind of glad that there was no TV special for the 20th anniversary of New Who, because the show has already been looking backwards enough recently. But then again, I guess now they literally have just made the Doctor the companion from 20 years ago, so close enough. But what do you think of the Doctor Who anniversary curse? Am I just overthinking things, or do these anniversaries really serve as accidental hurdles? Let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. And I'd just like to thank my Asbantium level patron, Fallon Cortez, my Diamond level patron, Valtar, and all my Gold level patrons, Daniel Shillito, Elliot Hodgkinson, and James Alayula Waterhouse. Thank you for supporting the channel.